What is up, Cats fans? It is Paul here from The Hoop Show doing my first solo recording for the channel. You've obviously seen me, hopefully, in Behind the Play up to this point where I sit down with players, with staff, with supporters, with important figures in the community, all sharing a love of the Geelong Football Club. And occasionally we get some outside perspectives as well. But this is the first time I've actually jumped in and done something on the YouTube channel beyond all that. And I thought the right starting point was to follow up from a Tiermaker episode that Ben had done recently that I was quite distressed by when I saw, if I'm being perfectly honest. You, the Cats fans, the Cats faithful, probably saw that Ben didn't show us the respect that I think we deserve. I think he's treating us like a one-and-done, falling back down the ladder mob. There was also a number of other, I'm going to call them blatant errors that he made in his recording. And so I thought I'd try and right the ship a little bit by putting together my own Tiermaker list. And so I've done plenty of these before for my various game-related things, and I guess if you'll indulge me in a quick plug for a moment, player2.net.au is where you'll find all my video game-related content, and there's associated YouTube channels and everything there too. But I won't spend too much time on that. I know my way around the Tiermaker system. I've recreated what Ben has used himself so that we can classify things in the exact same fashion. So what we're going to do, we are going to save Geelong till last, but I think you can maybe get a bit of a sense for where I'm going to position them. I'm going to work A to Z, or I guess A to W in this particular case. So we're going to start with the Adelaide Crows, the Adelaide Football Club, and where I think they are going to land this year. Now, Ben had them quite low down the ladder, and I can appreciate where he came from in that regard. The Crows have had a rough few years. I mean, really ever since the camp, things have never quite been the same. And we won't meander too much into that camp. But things have always been a little bit tougher for them in the years since then. But they are building a list that is going to be really potent. I think the likes of Darcy Fogarty, for example, are really going to blossom in the next 12 months. We saw signs towards the back end of this season, and I think he's really going to improve, as is the rest of the club. And so I'm going to position them not overly high, but not quite as low as 17 to 18 like Ben had suggested before. I'm going to put them in that 13 to 16 band. Next up is Brisbane, and unfortunately I just don't see them progressing beyond that 3 to 8 tier that we've kind of seen them in the last couple of years, where they keep getting close. They push prelims, they push teams in the finals. In the case of 2022, they didn't really push Geelong in the prelim whatsoever, but they're a good team. They are a really good team. They've got stars on every line, but they just can't put it all together. They have clear weak links. And I think that actually is the tall forwards. I know Hipwood and Danaher on paper look fantastic, but they just don't gel. They are very much the same player. I was very concerned when they were thinking that Buddy was going to come up there for a while, because he wasn't going to save that either. He plays the exact same game style. And yeah, I think they've got a little way to go. They've got some things they need to fix, and so I expect them to kind of linger in that 3 to 8 territory. They are an excellent football club. There's no doubting that. They have a great list, a team that is absolutely going to get them into finals, unless things go horribly pear-shaped over the course of the year with injuries, but they will remain in that 3 to 8 region. Next up is the Carlton Football Club, who I think will be spurred on by the heartbreak of round 23 and will also find themselves in the 3 to 8 category. They're an incredibly strong team. Their spine is the envy, I think, of every team in the competition. What they've got going straight down the middle of the field there, with obviously the tall forwards in Charlie and Harry. You've got Cripper in the middle, and then you've got some incredible key defenders, highlighted by Wiedering, of course. They are incredibly potent down that spine, and they are building around it. And that list is really, really strong. They will have learnt a hell of a lot from last year, and so they will find themselves in that 3 to 8 band next year. Next up is the Collingwood Football Club, who I will agree with Ben on this one. They will slide a little bit. They will remain in the top 8. They are an incredibly proud team, and they've learnt how to win over the course of this past 12 months. And so I think they will, again, be really admirable. I don't know why the Bulldogs have slipped up here. Let's shuffle you down the bottom. They will have another great season, But I think some of those wins that they got over the line, that it took so much out of them to get those wins, a few of those will go against them this year. They'll, be a bit more 50-50 in some of those tight games. Other clubs will have studied and worked them out a little bit. And so they will remain a strong team who will win games. But they are a young team. They will tire. There will be some baggage, I think, from that. And so they'll slide just a little bit. Here's the big point of difference between Ben and I. He was tipping the Bombers to finish top 2, which absolutely mind-blowing to me. I do understand that obviously there's all been this talk for years and years and years about their list, but I don't see it. I don't see it yet. And so I've got them finishing 9th to 12th because they will, there is enough there that they'll win a few games and they'll do what Essendon does, which is towards the back end. There's a little bit of an admirable charge towards the end, but it's already too late. And so 9 to 12 is where I see them finishing. Freo is a team that I'm going to struggle with, I think, in this particular Tiermaker thing. They could be a team that I find myself moving between 9 and 12 and 3 and 8, depending on how my thoughts kind of come together with the rest. But my first blush impression, my gut feel, is that they will remain in that top 8. They're in a very similar position to Carlton. I would say not quite as strong around the field, but they do have that advantage of the home ground, that causes so many problems when teams come to visit. So I think for that reason, top 8 for Freo and a really powerful force next year. I said I'd save Geelong till last. I won't. I'll keep to this doing things in order. Geelong will be in the top 2 again. Whether they go on to win the flag is a whole other thing. That is another year on the old bodies that have obviously just climbed an incredible mountain to get to the top. And so I can see where Ben is coming from when he thinks 3 to 8, and I think he specifically said 6th in the end. But I think they'll be hungry for more. I think they'll be hungry for more. So the Cats finish top 2. Mark them in. Get your texter out. Put them in. Get your pen out. Put them in. Get your pencil out, put them in. No matter what your writing implement is, get them in your top 2. They will be there. Now, what happens with the come finals time, that's a whole other thing. But the ladder position, top 2 for the Cats. Next up is the Suns. And where Ben had them cellar dwelling, I feel really bullish about them. The question is, do I feel like they will finally do what they've never done before and slip into that top 8 spot? I don't. And that's only because of the other teams that have risen at about the same time. Like the Suns, there was going to be more natural growth in a team that really showed signs over the course of this year and started to show consistency, started to show the heart that we want to see from this club who has just been so downtrodden since they've arrived. But I just don't know that we're there yet. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to see the Suns pop into finals and finally break that hoodoo. And maybe they get bowled out in the first round, but I think the AFL world, I think, wants to see the Suns get off the canvas a little bit and prove some of the doubters wrong. I just think we're not quite there. We might be one more season in terms of that development. A few of those younger blokes that have come through, they're chock full of talent, but just need to get those hardened bodies. They might be facing some second-year blues in a few cases. But I don't know. It's an interesting one. We've got a young gun, tall forward who's going to be on his way back. Ben King, obviously, that is going to help a lot, and I'm sure he has bulked up in the top half over the course of the off-season while strengthening up the knee. So you never know. The GWS Giants, it's 13th to 16th or 17th to 18th, and they're a plucky team with some cool, really good core players like Toby Green, and so they'll pinch a couple to ensure that they don't fall in that absolute bottom band. Unlike the Hawks, who I promise I'm not just doing this because I have a deep disgust and loathing for the Hawks since 2008. A bitter feeling I've never been able to shake. I won't hide from it. If you're a neutral or a Hawks fan watching here, yes, I haven't let go of 2008. It's pathetic in a lot of ways, but I'm sure you've got the same sort of grudges against various other teams as well for similar sorts of reasons. They've robbed you blind in the grand final, whatever the case happens to be. But setting that aside, I think a lot of Hawks fans are genuine. If they get really introspective, I think they will reflect on their list right now, pending whatever happens in the draft, and think, we're not quite there yet. Like, we've tossed out so many experienced players, and the young blokes need more time. So I just don't think, like, the lack of big bodies is, I think that's really going to come back to bite them. And so I think they'll be cellar dwelling this year, quite possibly dead last. And they've acknowledged that they are going through the full rebuild, which is a level of transparency that I really actually appreciate a lot. But it's not good for them. On the flip side, going back to the very top end of the ladder, the Melbourne Football Club will be back. They started so strongly at the beginning of the year. Grundy's only going to improve things. It adds that versatility for Gawn, allows him to relax a little bit. Jackson leaving obviously hurts, but Gawn does come in as a ready-made replacement. And I think they will be fighting for that top spot again. And again, there'll probably be some natural growth from some of those youngsters. Like, they won the premiership as a pretty young list. So I think they should be feeling pretty confident. Next up is the North Melbourne Football Club, and they won't finish last. I think that is the Hawks spot. But it will be interesting to see kind of Sam Mitchell and Clarko in the bottom two positions, potentially fighting their way away from the wooden spoon. But we'll see what happens there. Again, there'll be some growth from North, and they might pinch a few wins and maybe slip into that 13 to 16 band. But if you look at their list at face value, it's just not there. It's not ready yet. They lost their number one draft pick in Jason Horne-Francis. They're going to bring in two fantastic young players. Depending on when this episode goes live, that may have already happened, but they're not there. They're not ready. Now things start getting tough, because as I look at the teams that remain, I've got 2 final spots left, and I would say that there is 3, maybe 4 teams that genuinely could make an argument for those spots. And the problem is that the Power are one of those ones that I feel like could go either way. So I'm not 100% sure yet. I'm going to pop the Power right now in this moment in time that may change before the video is done. I'm going to pop them in that 9 to 12 band, and we'll just see what happens. Next up is the Tigers, who will absolutely be featuring. Their list has only gotten stronger. Yes, Cochin and Rewalt are getting really close to the end. Will Dusty regain what he has been for many years? But there's so many young shoots coming through that are demonstrating some incredible things. Their systems there at the club are really firing on all cylinders. It means like these young blokes come in and they instantly play the game plan right. They've got great ball sense. They've got great game sense. They know exactly what's going on at all times. I'm really, really impressed with how the Richmond Tigers handle themselves. And yeah, of course, you add a couple of GWS guns in there, and that's only going to help, right? Next up is St Kilda. Sorry, guys. Ross, the boss, is back. But I don't think you can climb out of the situation just yet. Sydney Swans. And actually, I don't even know, like I might have got myself into a bit of a knot here up to a point. But the Sydney Swans, they will be the final team in our top 8. Whether they finish 8th or not, I don't know. I might try and shuffle this around in a moment to try and mentally work out where they're going to be. I wasn't really thinking necessarily through that lens, and more just who's going to feature. But they will be scarred by what's happened in that grand final. I think we've seen that from any team who's been beaten in such a way over the years, with kind of the only exception being Geelong from 2020. They were obviously smacked and kind of had another dip the following year. They got smacked in the prelim and then followed up next year and won the flag. So Geelong is very much an exception there. And so I can't rule out the possibility that the Swans will be the same, because they have an incredible culture there at the club, not dissimilar to the Geelong Football Clubs. Everyone talks about how strong that Bloods culture is and what they've got going at the club. So it does bode well in that regard. But I don't know. I think they're going to be a bit fragile, at least early days. And Buddy's in his final year. There's all those sorts of things that could work against them a little bit. Next up is the Western Bulldogs, and this is where I've created a knot for myself, because I believe they'll be in that 9 to 12 band. They've got some guns all over the field. Bont, obviously, Jamara coming through. But their defense, they haven't fixed up the defense. The defense continues to cause them problems, and they haven't really solved the problem in this off-season as far as I'm concerned so far. And so I don't expect that to change. I am now realising that I've got too many teams in that band. We'll resolve that in a moment after we pop the West Coast Eagles, in 13 to 16. Who honestly, I think they probably belong in the 17 to 18 band. I would love to put North above them, but I think the reality is that they've got that home ground advantage, a level of advantage from that North doesn't have when they bring teams down to Hobart. So, or Launceston, Hobart. So they'll find themselves there because they will pinch a couple enough over the course of the year to kind of dodge that bullet. And revisiting my situation here, of these 9 to 12 teams, who is the one that's going to fall into the 13 to 16? I might pull Essendon back. I think Essendon will be the one that drops into that 13 to 16 spot. They're just not. Yeah, they're just not there. They are just not there. Now, if I try to assemble that a little bit more, North will so Hawthorn I've got finishing 18th, North 17th. Might flip those two around these two around simply because the Eagles again the home ground thing, and the Giants have just lost players. There hasn't been too much addition going on. Adelaide, they're a team on the rise. They're gonna bank a few more wins, but it's still gonna be a challenging year for them. Essendon, we know what they could be, but I don't know if they're necessarily there yet. Within this particular bracket, I'm mostly okay with it. Actually. I know the thing that will be sticking out for people will be the Suns finishing 9th, but I believe in the Suns. I believe in what they are building. Obviously, it hurts losing one of your best young players, but I think, again, King coming back really helps. I'm going to stick with that. Our 3 to 8 teams... gee whiz, this is not easy. I'll put Sydney in 8th. I think that's probably right. I think the Scars will haunt them over the course of the year, but they will do enough to still remain in the finals. The Tigers, I think, will be your top 4 team. I think Carlton will be a top 4 team. And within this particular bracket, I think that's probably where your top your 3 to 8 teams fall, with Brisbane shifting in. So yeah, you'll get home games for Collingwood and Freo in the first week of finals, as well as Geelong and Melbourne. And I think the D's will be the one that kind of banks the most wins during the home and away. Again, what happens during the finals will be a totally different thing. Let me be crystal clear with that. But I think the D's will bank the most home and away wins. Geelong will drop a few along the way. Not many. I don't think many. I think this could be a year where your top 2 really kind of could quite possibly get 18 plus wins. And that's an excellent season there with the likes of Richmond and Carlton breathing right down their necks. But that is how I've placed the 18 teams going into 2023. It is a long way out, and we may do this again, similar to what Ben was discussing. We may do this again on the eve of the season when we've seen some preseason form and all of those sorts of things. But that's how I've ranked the men's top 18 for next year. And let me know what you think. Make sure to shout us out in the comments there. Hit us up on social media at The Hoop Show. Make sure to visit the Patreon. We have some awesome content there coming on along. They are the gold cards that Ben has been doing a brilliant job of creating. Like playing card style things that he's done an amazing job making those up. They're awesome. We're going to have some exclusive early access to some behind the play episodes, which is, as we discussed at the beginning, that's my baby. I've already got one episode in the can with a current AFLW player. Geelong AFLW player, I should be specific. And we've got talks going on with other current day men's players at the moment. But nothing in that area has been set in stone, nor has it been recorded, so I don't want to jump the gun in that area. And so make sure to hit up the Patreon. There's some awesome content there, and Ben and I are talking about a host of different ways that we can add more value to that service for you going into 2023. Really, really cool stuff there, and I hope that you check it out. From there, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are climbing towards a new milestone there in terms of the subscriber count. Make sure to share it with your friends. All of that stuff is huge. We really, really appreciate it. Catch us on social media, twitter.com/thehoopshow. Myself, you can find me at Paul James Games. So if you want to reach out there and chat footy, Geelong more specifically, cricket, video games. That is my big thing, unsurprisingly, Paul James games. And there are some cool things that I'm looking to try and do that blend those two loves of mine together for some Hoop Show content going into 2023 as well. So stay tuned for all of that. We'll see what happens. All right, guys, that was my tier maker for the how the 18 teams will be placed next year. Make sure, again, check out all the content. And otherwise, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you later.